So you just got your new M4 iPad Pro, and now I'm sure you're wondering, what kind of case would go well with this new iPad Pro? Well, I got three options here for you, and I'm going to give you the pros and the cons of each of them. And something I want to preface is that none of these are sponsored and given to me. I went out and bought each and every one of these, and this is my honest opinions of all of them. Alright, so we're first going to talk about the Apple Folio case. This is obviously the first party option and something you can get right from Apple's own website when you purchase the device or something like that. So this is what we'll discuss first. Then I have two different ESR cases for us to look at. The first is their Folio case, which is very similar to Apple's, except it has a flap here for the pencil. We'll get into that more later. And for those who like a more protective style case with some interesting tricks up its sleeve, we have the ESR Shift Magnetic Case. Starting with the Apple Folio case here, the first thing I want to talk about is the quality. And that is one of the biggest pros to this product. It feels really well made. The silicone material they use on this case is very premium. It honestly has not been smudging, and this totally may be the color, it may not even be the material, but this white is not smudging that much at all. The magnets feel really good, really strong, and even the quality of the microfiber lining is very, very nice, and I can trust that this will be very protective and will not damage the back of the iPad. So now attaching the iPad here, the magnets are also pretty strong. Like, I'm applying some force here and it is not detached. Now, I wouldn't want to dangle it like this all the time, but that is pretty impressive, and this feels secure. And this case clearly has high quality magnets, and because Apple obviously made the device itself, they line them up just perfectly and everything flows really well. Another pretty cool thing with this case is they've now made the folios have a couple different angles. So it obviously has this triangle fold that it can make, and that makes a pretty good writing angle. And then for standing it up, you have this configuration where it is much flatter and you get an almost straight up and down iPad. And for some kind of viewing, this angle right here is actually really nice and very helpful, but it's not for everything. So then if you need it to be slanted back a bit more, they have magnets all up the back of this now. So now you can slide it along those magnets and very finely get to where you want to go. And at a certain point, it does snap into another locking point, but you can totally have it fit in between those two, and it will stay relatively well. But this is the official second locking point for it. Then if you start to go past that, it does not really connect anymore, and that's basically the maximum leaned back you can get. So it's not like it's super flexible, but it does give you some options, and that is pretty cool. The nice thing about getting a first party case is it does what it's supposed to do, it's reliable, and it feels premium. However, there definitely are cons. For one, the price. This case is $80. And honestly, that's a lot for just a Folio case. In my opinion, $40 is already asking a lot for a case like this. But $80, that's quite a lot. And pretty much you're just paying for this Apple logo on the back. And that's pretty much why it's that expensive. So that's definitely the biggest con, especially when you're spending so much money on these iPads already. You kind of don't want to spend another almost $100 on the case itself, but this one will be reliable. I'm sure it'll last a long time, and it does have those first party benefits. It obviously has the sleep and wake function of the Folio case. Actually, all of these cases I'm testing has that function, so that will be consistent throughout all of these. The last con is when you attach the Apple Pencil. It fits just fine, and there is this little lip around the case that helps protect the iPad itself from falls and corner damage, but it doesn't really help the pencil stay on the iPad. It's still very easy to knock it off. And that is definitely a downside. It's the same downside I have with the Magic Keyboard case as well. It doesn't have a great way of storing the pencil in a way that it does not fall off. It's pretty destined to fall off, and you have to be really careful where you set this and where you put it, because this pencil could totally come off if you just smack it even a little bit. So that's the Apple Folio case. Next up is ESR's option for the Folio case. And the first thing I want to say is that the outside does feel a slightly lower quality than Apple's, but not by a lot, considering this is a fraction of the price. That is really, really impressive. I bought this one for under $18. Now, it actually does range on price on Amazon based on the color, which is kind of weird. I don't know why certain colors cost more than others. I don't know all the reasoning behind that, but it does. So this is about $18. I think the white one was a little over $20, but at maximum you're paying like $25. And that's still less than half, almost less than a quarter of what Apple's version costs. So you're saving a lot of money with this option, and it has other benefits as well. While attached to the iPad, it has this wonderful flap here that keeps the Apple Pencil attached. No more smacking it off. You can try, but it won't. This magnetic flap is very secure, and when you don't need it, it gets right out of the way and folds behind. No worries, your Apple Pencil is safe. Now technically, you can try and push it through, but even that, I'm pushing it as hard as I can through the other side, and you don't get enough give to actually push it past the magnets. It's barely even moving, and this pencil's not going anywhere. I really like this when I'm using this iPad more as a notebook and taking it places. I never have to worry about throwing it in my bag or just holding on to one side of it and worry that I'm gonna hit the pencil, or when I'm coming out of a car or something like that, I'm gonna knock it into something, drop it on the concrete, break my $100 pencil. None of that stuff. You get way more security and way less anxiety with having this flap here. It also still does the same jobs that the other Folio cases did, although it's more like Apple's old Folios and not the updated one. And by that I mean it still has the drawing angle that folds up into a triangle here, although it also has what they call a typing angle, where you can magnetize it to the back and it raises up even more if you like that. I think this could also totally be used for drawing if you just want a little bit different style. Here's it from another perspective as well. This is it in the regular style, and this is it more raised up. So that is a really nice option to have, but as far as standing it up, it really only has one option. You just push it back like this and sit it up. It's basically in between the two positions that the Apple version gives you. So it's not bad, it's a pretty good viewing angle, but there is absolutely no flexibility here, which again, isn't bad. It's what Apple's Folio cases did for years, so it's not that weird. They just recently changed that with their new version, so that is one of the downsides. So that is one of the cons, and the other cons are honestly not that big a deal either. One of them is the lining on this case. They do consider it microfiber, but it's definitely not as soft and premium feeling as Apple's. And I don't know if it keeps it quite as nice as Apple's case does. Again, they say it's microfiber, I do believe them, but it just does not feel quite as soft and premium. Again, it still has sleep wake, so you get that, no problem. And at least on this black color, it does seem to be fingerprinting more than the Apple version, and it's definitely smudgier, but again, that could just be color option and not material. I will probably be getting a white version of this at some point to try out, and if you want to see a video on that one, let me know in the comments below. So that is the ESR Folio case, and I think this is a super good option, especially if you don't want to pay the $80 that Apple charges for their version. Next up is ESR's Shift Magnetic case. A little bit bulkier, a bit more protective, and it has some tricks up its sleeve. So obviously getting this iPad in the case is a bit more of a hassle, because it actually has a full protective case around it. It does not attach magnetically, well at least not this part of the case. The benefits is, it gives you much more protection and coverage, scratch resistance, drop resistance, all that kind of stuff. And the cover still has auto sleep, auto wake. It's definitely more protective in a drop scenario than the other cases. So this one is gonna cost you more than ESR's Folio case, coming in at $40, but still half the price of Apple's case. And there's a lot more material and things going on with this one than Apple's. So one of the first things you're gonna notice about this case is obviously it has this really protective outer part, but the inside is detachable with magnets. And you have a smaller, much thinner inner case. It definitely gets kind of fingerprinty though. And this part is really nice for tablet mode and just using this when you don't need all the extra protection and functionality, and just still having something on your iPad to help keep it safe. Also, even with full protection all around it, it still has a groove here for the Apple Pencil to sit in, and it still charges through it, and everything like that works phenomenally. And speaking of the pencil, when you have the outer case attached, there is this stretchy pouch right here in the back, and you can just take your pencil, push it right in, it fits in very easily, and now this is not going anywhere. It is very secure in here. I don't know if this is better than a flap. I feel like the flap was very, very secure as well. So I kind of wish they baked that in instead of the pouch, but they do have a lot of other things going on with this case, so maybe the flap just wouldn't have worked. But this is a nice alternative option, especially if you don't want your Apple Pencil charging all the time, which I have shown in my battery test video that it does drain your battery more than if you don't have it on. So if you like to keep your pencil with your iPad, but not attached to the iPad all the time, this is a really good option for you. The other really big benefit with this case is all its viewing angles. So as you see, there's a bunch of slots on the bottom here, and that is for when the case is behind it. It has a stand that folds out, and every single one of these notches has a magnet that helps lock this in place, where it's not going to go anywhere while it's sitting in that notch unless you lift it back up and move it back and back and back. And it can get pretty low. And you might think, well, this is pretty cool, but is it actually low enough for you to draw on? Well, maybe not, and it's not also the most secure holding here. But there is another option. Pushing the stand in right here, you can actually take this top part that the pencil was in and fold that down, and it also has those magnets on it. So you can do a much lower drawing angle, or you can lift it up a little bit higher in one of these other slots, but you can definitely get pretty low to the ground. And this is a pretty perfect drawing angle for most people, and it's a little bit more secure. It's not going to move quite as much while tapping it, and that is definitely helpful, especially if you want to get some drawing done and take some notes. This is a really good angle for that, and it definitely seems very stable, and I'm able to take them very well. It's got it all, right? What's the downsides? Well, there's actually a couple downsides that basically make it a deal breaker. So I'll start with the smallest downside, and then I'll move to the worst downside. The smallest is the pouch. For me, it's not quite as convenient as a flap, and I really would have preferred that. And having to move my pencil from here to here is not really how I want to store it every single time I want to go somewhere. I wouldn't even mind this as an option, but I kind of wish there was the flap still here as well. Now, of course, this part does move back and connects to the stand, so I understand why they left out the flap. I'm just saying it would have been nicer if they could have found a way to add it. So that's definitely the smallest downside. And then a much bigger downside for me is how bulky the case is. It almost doubles the thickness of the iPad, and that's kind of a deal breaker for me. I like my iPads to feel thin and be very portable, and it definitely adds weight as well. So it detracts from the portability of the iPad, and that's not fun for me at all. I don't like that. I need it to be thin and light and portable. That's kind of the entire purpose of the iPad for me. If I want something chunkier and bulkier, I might as well just have a laptop with me, not a thin and light tablet. And then the last downside, which also is a deal breaker for me, is this inside case and the magnets they use with it. So if I was ESR, I would think it would make the most sense to replicate the magnets of the iPad on the back of this case. So that way it can connect with every other iPad accessory as well. I also think it would have been cool if they had a pass-through smart connector, so it can still connect to the Magic Keyboard. But even with their own Folio case, this does not attach magnetically. This does not stick at all, at least not securely. That is a missed opportunity, because if you had both of them, it'd be very cool if they had interchangeability between them, but they do not. And then again, with the Magic Keyboard, it does not stay. And it has no smart connector pass-through, so it won't work. And I use my Magic Keyboard from time to time as well. And that's the beauty of the thin and light Folio cases, is they just magnetize in the back, and I can easily pull them off and then use my Magic Keyboard when I need it. And then a huge missed opportunity is the keyboard case that ESR makes themselves. It doesn't work with this one either. And that's just ridiculous to me. So it even has a very similar inside case, almost exactly the same. but yet this inside case won't attach to their keyboard. This might be a little bit easier to see, but even in portrait mode, which these are supposed to do as well, it doesn't really stay. It kind of stays, maybe, but that's not going to actually work for you when you're trying to get work done, and especially landscape mode. It does not stay. They need to think about their other products and the ecosystem they could build. They could have made one universal inside case that worked with all these other accessories, and then they could have this whole ecosystem of products, and that would have been really compelling to purchase. It would also encourage buyers to buy all their different options, where I don't feel encouraged to do that. I don't want their keyboard case if I have their case here, because they're not going to work together. That doesn't make any sense. So that's just really frustrating to me. More on that when I cover this keyboard in a future video, comparing it to the Magic Keyboard. And boy, do I have some thoughts. And I just briefly mentioned it, but really quick, I do want to actually go over some of the multiple angles it has. I didn't go over them super thoroughly. It just has this ability to reattach up higher, so you can get an even more raised viewing angle, which I will say, it is a nice angle. You can get some pretty good height with it. You can even have it more up and down like this and get a pretty nice viewing angle, and that's really nice. But again, there's a finicky problem here. This does not stay very well. That is not good. I do not want to just be able to touch the top of my iPad and it fall off the magnets. They need to rework their magnetic system, because this is just not it. Like, that barely stays. You just tap it and it's gone. I was trying so hard to just barely touch it, and that's all it took. They also have portrait mode viewing, which is a nice option again, but again, very weak magnets. The only times the magnets feel strong is when you directly attach it to all of them in the main configuration. Otherwise, they are very flimsy and you gotta be very careful with it. I've seen many reviewers being sponsored by ESR and recommending their products without really detailing what their pros and cons actually are. And I think there really are some pros. There are some benefits to ESR and what they do. But there is definitely some weird downsides. Like, I just don't understand how their magnetic system is working and why they would not make that super cohesive and work together with other things. That makes zero sense to me. And if they're going to advertise multiple different configurations, they should have made sure that the magnets are consistently strong in all the configurations. Otherwise, I don't really trust them as an actual configuration I can put my iPad in. This iPad, I spec'd it out. It's almost $2,000. Like, I don't want that falling off my table because of weak magnets. All right, so what do I actually recommend to most people? For almost everyone out there, I recommend the ESR Folio case. It has a very secure magnetic flap to keep your Apple Pencil nice and safe, and it's really affordable. It is very nice for the price you're paying for it. I've had one of these for my previous iPad Pros before, and it held up for years. So I can recommend this, no problem. Really good, especially if you use the Magic Keyboard, where you need to rip this one off and put it back on the keyboard case as quickly as possible. Unless you need those couple different viewing angles that the Apple Folio case now gives you, I would not pay $80 for this. If you find it on sale for much cheaper, maybe consider that. It is very high quality, it's very premium, it feels expensive, but it does not feel worth $80, at least not to me. If I did not have a channel where I was testing out products and things like that, I would have totally just bought this ESR Folio case and been done with it. This would have lasted me years and I would have been very happy. If you want a more protective fit and a bunch of different viewing angles, this ESR case is not bad. I know I was giving it some criticism for the magnet structure, but if you're not really wanting to use the portrait mode version and the raised up magnet mode, and you don't really use a Magic Keyboard or any other keyboard like that, honestly, this is pretty good. It gives you a lot of flexibility. It gives you like a thinner and lighter case if you don't want the outer protective case on, and things like that. It's not a bad case, and for $40, it does a really good job. I hope you learned something from this video and that it was actually worth your time and worth watching. That's always our goal here on this channel, is to make quality content that is valuable, and worth your time. All the equipment that I use to make this video is actually gonna be linked in the description below if you're curious about getting any of it for yourself. And if you like one of these 3 cases, that is also gonna be linked in the description below. Again, I am not sponsored. I do have affiliate links, so clicking on them will give me a small commission to no extra charge for you. So it will definitely help the channel out. I would appreciate that. But at the same time, I don't owe these companies anything. Buy whatever you want. And please, if you enjoyed this video, please like it, comment below, share the content, and please subscribe. We're trying to get to 1,000 subscribers before the end of the month, and I really think we can get there. We might even be able to get there before the end of this week. So tell all your friends, get them all subscribed. I think we can make it. And as always, have a great rest of your day.